I don't know. I think 70. Hey, everybody. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the air conditioned house of the Lord. Right? There's no air conditioning in the parking lot? Yes. There's the thermostat on the shed back there. Turn the thermostat down. I think you can turn the temperature down in the parking lot. It's on the side of the shed there. Just look for it. Hi. Prayer requests and praises. What do you have this afternoon? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. All right. Okay. Miss Sonia Stafford, not feeling good today. Okay. Other praises or prayer requests? I'm sorry. Wendy's out of the hospital. LJ, they're still trying to get the blood sugars controlled. And yesterday it had dropped twice, and so still trying to get that under control. Not that's last I know. I didn't hear anything today, but that was yesterday. Yep. So there, of course, the baby was delivered in Chino, California, where Wendy's from, and so they're over there. That's why Juan hasn't been in the office or anything for the last couple of weeks. But um, yeah, thank you for asking. All right, other prayer requests or praises? Yes, sir. Yeah, please. Uh huh. Uh huh. Uh huh. Uh huh. Yeah. Good. Tell her Philippians 4. Philippians 4. That's God's prescription for a good mental and emotional health. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. I saw another hand when he raised his hand. Where's somewhere? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. Pray for Diane. A couple of Sundays ago, she'd uh, right as we ended and she got ready to leave, um, went back down. I mentioned last week she had a stroke, and so pray for her. All right. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah. TJ, good. Remind me of your name, though. Okay. All right. Any others, sir? Yeah, I was thinking around here, I know there's at least two men's Bible studies that take place during the week. And then we have this one here on Wednesday. And then on Sunday morning, there's a ladies' Bible study. And then on Sunday morning, there's also the mixed men and women's Bible study. And then, of course, on Sunday afternoon, there's the 5 o'clock, the 4 different Bible studies. We've no excuses, do we? And I'm glad to be able to offer that. And I'm glad many of you are picking up the mantle and teaching, because I can't do it all. And so I appreciate that as well. All right, any others? Yes, Melinda? All right, the captives of the folks there in Gaza. Yep. Right. Jephthah. Jephthah. You know anything about Jephthah? Who is Jephthah? Anybody before we bring it up? Dave, can you bring up the back one on the wall for me? The turn on the projector on the wall? Yeah, that one's not on. That way I know where we're at. Anybody know anything about Jephthah? What book of the Bible would you find Jephthah? Oh, good. Y'all are going to learn a lot tonight. Judges. Judges. I love it when I stump the whole crowd. Especially when I'm talking to folks who have been saved and studying the Bible longer than I've been alive. That's just awesome. Jephthah. We're going to be in Judges 11. Judges 11. Go ahead and show us that text there, Dave. Trying. Judges 11. Yeah. The first section of this, go ahead and back up. There it is. The first section of this, these first 11 verses, I've entitled this section, Be Careful to Not Burn Bridges and Learn to Let Go of the Grudges. Be careful to not burn bridges and learn to let go of the grudges, all right? Judges 11 and verse number 1, all right? Here we go. Now Jephthah, first thing we learn about him, he's a what? He's a Gileadite. Second thing we learn, he was a what? A mighty warrior. So this is a Gileadite warrior. But he was also the son of a... We've learned 3 things about this guy here in the first verse here. He was a Gileadite, he was a mighty warrior, and he was the son of a prostitute. Gilead was the father of Jephthah, and Gilead's wife also bore him sons. So that means Jephthah had stepbrothers, okay? Same daddy, different mother. And when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, You shall not have an inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman. Then Jephthah fled from his brothers, and he lived in the land of Tob. Sounds like a dwarf land or something like that. And worthless fellows, and notice who his running buddies were. And worthless fellows collected around Jephthah and went out with him. And after a time, the Ammonites, who were the Ammonites? Who was Moab and who was Ammon? Give you a hint. Lot. Do you remember Lot? Remember the story of Lot? You remember the two incestuous relationships that he had when his daughters got him drunk because they thought they were the last people on the planet? Ammon and Moab were those two boys, okay? So these are the descendants of that relationship there. And when the Ammonites, verse 5, made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to bring Jephthah from the land of Tob, and they said to Jephthah, "Come and be our leader." Now these are the same people that ran him off earlier. "Come and be our leader that we may fight against the Ammonites." Hey, please come back, brother. We like you now. Why? Remember, second thing we learned, he was a what? He was a mighty warrior. "Come and be our leader that we may fight against the Ammonites." Verse 7, "But Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, did you not hate me and drive me out of my father's house?" Yeah, a bunch of hypocrites. That's exactly right. And let's see here. Why have you come to me now when you are in distress? And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "Well, that is why we've turned to you now, that you may go with us and fight against the Ammonites and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead." They're going to make him their leader if he is willing to fight against the Ammonites. So verse 9, Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "Well, if you bring me home again to fight against the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them over to me, I will be your head." And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, the Lord will be witness between us if we do not do as you say." So Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and leader over them. And Jephthah spoke all these words before the Lord at Mizpah. So what's the next thing you learn right there is that Jephthah, though he had a ruckus crowd that he ran with, a bunch of worthless fellows collected around him, you notice here that he has a relationship with the Lord. And Jephthah spoke all these words, where? Before the Lord at Mizpah. Now, who is Jephthah? Well, Jephthah serves as a judge over Israel for 6 years following the leadership of Jair. Jephthah, as we've said, was a Gileadite, born of a prostitute. Though a mighty warrior, he was driven away from his family as an adult because he was considered an illegitimate kid. Verse 3 records that he moved to the land of Tob and he lived amongst a gang of thugs, worthless fellows collected around him. Later, the Ammonites came against Israel in war. The Israelites said to Jephthah, "Please come and help us and beat them up for us." And Jephthah accepted their offer. Now, two things. One, the Israelites nearly burned the bridge to Jephthah. They had mistreated him without knowing that they would later need him. What do we learn from that? What do you learn from that? Pretty simple, right? Don't burn your bridges, right? You ever burned a bridge? You ever, constantly? Yeah, if you're a driven person, it's easy to burn bridges. If you've got a sharp tongue, it's easy to burn bridges. You can also burn bridges in this situation out of jealousy. Jealousy can be a cause of burning bridges. Why else do people burn bridges? What are your thoughts? Why else do people burn bridges? They almost burned their bridge to the only hope they had to beat the Ammonites. They're grateful that they didn't. Why else do people burn bridges? Y'all are asleep. Envy, okay, envy, that's one, yeah. Jealousy, okay. Yeah, sometimes pride there. In their situation, they said, "You will not have what with us? An inheritance." So what was that? Greed. Greed can cause you to burn a bridge. How many siblings have squabbled over inheritance? And now bridges are burned, and we know about those sadly way too often, right? These are all reasons that people burn bridges and many, many others. Secondly, that's the first thing. Secondly, Jephthah, he didn't hold a grudge. Yes, he was hurt. Yes, he let them know that he was hurt. He let those who had hurt him know it. But when they needed his help, he set aside the pain, he set aside the grudge, he set aside the hurt, and he was willing to go and help. What do we learn from that? I'm trying to not do all the talking tonight. I'm trying to do it like we do life groups and different small group Bible studies. I want your interaction. What do we learn from that? Where he set that aside. Forgiveness, right? Forgiveness. Have you ever been hurt? Yeah, we all have. No, you don't live too long before you're hurt. And the longer you live, the more hurt you're going to suffer. And the more grudges it's going to be, you're going to be tempted to hold, right? You probably can think right now in your own life and in the life of those closest to you of grudges, of a lack of forgiveness. Forgiveness needs to be there. We need to offer that forgiveness. How can we hold a grudge against a sinner when a sinless God doesn't hold a grudge against us? Right? Wherein do we find forgiveness? Calvary. Calvary. That's where we find the motivation, the strength, the wherewithal to forgive somebody else. Truth of the matter is, if you're holding a grudge against somebody, then you don't realize just how bad you hurt the Savior with your sin. The more you examine that, the more you understand what your sin did to God, the much easier it will be for you to turn loose of those grudges. The much easier it'll be. For no one has ever hurt you as much as your sin has hurt God. Has anybody hurt you so bad that you had to sacrifice your son? No, I don't think so. But that's exactly what happened. All right, let's keep going. Secondly, we see here Jephthah tries to avoid war. Jephthah, he tries to avoid war. That's the second section I've titled this here. Look at verse number 12. Then Jephthah, this is several verses here, and I'm going to try to stay with me, okay? Pay attention on purpose because we're going to read several verses. Then Jephthah sent messengers. Okay, remember this? Wait. Remember the context. The Ammonites are wanting to fight against the Israelites. The Israelites have recruited Jephthah to go and fight, and be their leader, okay? He doesn't want to fight. He's trying to avoid it. So notice what he does. Then Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites, that's the enemy, and said, "What do you have against me? Why are you fighting against me? That you've come to me to fight against my land?" And the king of the Ammonites answered the messengers of Jephthah, and this is a guy who is holding a grudge. Well, because Israel, on coming up from Egypt, this had been many years previous. Because Israel, on coming up from Egypt, you remember that? That was like way back. Coming up from Egypt, took away my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, those are rivers or brooks, and to the Jordan. Now therefore restore it peaceably. You took our land when you came up from Israel, and we're here to fight against you unless you just give it back to us. Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites, and he said, No. Thus says Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites, but when they came up from Israel, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea, went through the wilderness to the Red Sea, and came to Kadesh. Israel then sent messengers to the king of Edom and saying, "Please, let us pass through your land." But the king of Edom would not listen. And they sent also to the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained at Kadesh. He didn't attack. Then they journeyed through the wilderness, and they went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab, and arrived on the east side of the land of Moab and camped on the other side of the Arnon. But they did not enter, it makes it just real plain, but they did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. Israel then sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon, and Israel said to him, "Please let us pass through your land to your country, or to our country." But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through their territory. they're reliving ancient history, okay? That's what's happening here. So Sihon, what did he do? He gathered all his people together and encamped at Jahaz and what? Oh, so who threw the first blow? The bad guy, right? The other guy, okay? Verse 21. And the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel took possession of all the land of the Amorites who inhabited that country. Get your history straight. And they took possession of all the territory of the Amorites, from the Arnon to the Jabbok, and from the wilderness to the Jordan. So then the Lord, the God of Israel, dispossessed the Amorites from before his people after they attacked them first. And are you to take possession of them? And this I love. He kind of taunts them a little bit right here, verse number 24. He taunts them. Remember, he just got done saying, our God, the Lord of the Israelites, capital L-O-R-D is the name of, what's that name? Jehovah. That's specifically God's name. Verse 24. And he just said to them, our God did it. We didn't attack first, but when you attacked, when your ancient ancestors attacked us, our God gave us possession of your land. Okay? And so now he says this. I love this. Will you not possess what Chemosh, your God, gives you to possess? In other words, our God gave us this land, and if you want to possess some land, maybe your little bitty God might give you land to possess. Let's see here. And all the Lord our God, and all that the Lord our God has dispossessed before us, we will what? We will possess. Now, are you any better than Balak, the son of Zippor, the king of Moab? Did he ever contend against Israel, or did he ever go to war with them? While Israel lived in Heshbon and its villages, and in Aroer and its villages, and in all the cities that are on the banks of the Arnon, 300 years. Why did you not deliver them within that time? This was, again, ancient history. It'd be like the Spaniards wanting to take Mexico back from the Mexicans. I mean, it's ancient history here. Okay. And I therefore have not sinned against you, and you do not wrong me by making war on me. And you do me wrong by making war on me. The Lord, the judge, decide this day between the people of Israel and the people of Ammon. But the king of the Ammonites did not listen to the words of Jephthah that he sent to him. Then what? The Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh, and passed on to Mizpah to Gilead, and from Mizpah to Gilead he passed on the Ammonites. So, did you follow that a little bit? Okay. Basically they said, we're fighting against you because you took our land. He said, whoa, you've had a history revision. And by the way, people are trying to revise history as well today. You need to get your history straight. We never attacked you. You first attacked us, and then when you attacked us, we defended ourselves, and we whooped you. And in whooping you, we took possession of your land. That's exactly right. We sure did. But we didn't attack you first. And yes, and we have held this land for over 300 years. Why during that 300 years did you try to do something about it then? Why now are you coming to attack me? You know, are we about to go to war over something that happened 300 years ago? All right, here we go. That's basically what's happened. Okay, that's the scenario, okay? Now, two things. One, Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers," right? Remember, he said that on the Mount of on the Sermon on the Mount, part of the Beatitudes there. One of the things that you see here is, I think you see Jephthah trying to avoid war and trying to have peace, right? And yet, I don't see someone who's being used as a doormat, right? I see someone who's strong. I see someone who has the wherewithal. And we're going to see in just a minute, he whoops them up again. Okay, so if it wasn't good enough 300 years ago, it's going to be good enough now. And so you see both strength You see strength. At the same time, you see a man who's doing what he can to avoid a fight. You know what that's called? Meekness. Meekness. Meekness is not weakness. Meekness is having all the strength that you need to clobber your opponent, but doing all you can to keep from having to do so. That's meekness. That's saying, listen, I really don't want to do this, but if you attack me, this is what's going to happen. Okay? When I've used this illustration before, when a horse is, anybody ever have horses? Anybody ever had the responsibility of breaking a horse? You ever have to break a horse? I had to break a horse. It was a Palomino, a blonde-haired horse, and appropriate that I had it, right? And his name, it was a gelding. It wasn't a stallion, it was a gelding. And his name was Sonny Boy, appropriate name for a blonde-haired horse, Sonny Boy. And that horse, he was broken, sort of. When he got tired, he headed towards the barn. He headed. Anybody else have a horse that would do that? And there just wasn't. And we tried all different kind of bits in the mouth. You know what I'm talking about? You put a cutting bit in there and all different kinds of. So Dad one time gave me an axe handle, not an axe, but an axe handle. He said, when that horse raises up, put that right between his ears. And I had the responsibility of keeping that horse from rearing up because it had already thrown me once. It had already fallen over on me. I mean, it had done all that it could because when it was tired, it wanted, and I didn't weigh, I know looking at me, you can't believe this now, but I didn't weigh anything back then. I wasn't 100 pounds, I know. So he felt like, I'm sure he felt like, well, whoever's back here, he can take full advantage of the situation. And so he would run for the ball, and he's run me through fence rows, run me through, got me all cut up on my legs and all of that, and eventually we got that horse where it wouldn't do that. There's another word for breaking it. It's called meeking. We meeked that horse. Okay, the horse was meeked. Did that horse lose any strength? Didn't lose any strength at all. Still had all the strength it ever had, but now that strength was controlled. It was under control. It was tamed. It was now useful. Okay? That is what we're to be. That is what I see in Jephthah. Jephthah is a meek man. He knew he could have whooped him. His first attempt was, let's please not go to war. You've encamped. You've marshaled your army. You're trying to show that you're going to fight against us. I'm trying to talk you down. Okay, I'm trying to bring civility to this. I'm trying to de-escalate the situation. Okay, even though it would have been like me standing against the second grader. Okay, he didn't have a chance. The Ammonites, they didn't have a chance in the world, and yet they just. You ever heard of these little dogs, and they're you know what I'm talking about? Great big old dog, right? On the other side of the fence. I'd love to just open that fence sometime. One bite for lunch, that's all it'd take. Small dog complex, okay? That's the Ammonites, okay? You got a great big dog in Israel. Jephthah is its leader, a meek man. You get the idea, too. He was a warrior, but he also knew how to fight. Remember the people he run with? They were worthless guys. They were people who were, thugs, strong men, you know what I'm talking about there? So he knew how to fight. He knew how to, and so he tried not to. So what are the lessons we learn? Don't bite off more than you can chew. That's right. Yeah, that's one. Hey, that's a great way of putting it. Say it again louder. Speak softly and carry a big stick. I like that a lot. We try to be very gracious and kind and as a church here, we try to exercise love, but on every Sunday there's at least about a half a dozen handguns in here and 2 AR-15s in here every single Sunday. Why? We speak softly, but we carry a very big stick. We do not want to be a soft target for the bad guys. Amen, right? We've seen that happen in churches before. Okay, let's keep going. Verse number 30. Starting in this section, I've called it, the Lord gave them into his hand. So Jephthah, he crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them, and the Lord gave them into his hand. Notice that there. And he struck them from Aroer to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 cities. Okay? 20 cities. Not a small feat. As far as Abel-Keramim, with a great blow. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. I'm going to give you this one. What do you learn from this? One, who was this guy Jephthah? He was a reject. He was a nobody. He was the son of a prostitute. And yet God used him in a significant way to deliver his own people, God's people, against a foreign invader. That just tells me no matter where you come from, no matter who your parents are or whatever your past is, God can use you for his glory. Right? Now let's look at, this is what most people think of when they think of Jephthah. We're going to see his vow and his remorse. Jephthah's vow and his remorse. Verse number 30. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, the light bulb's starting to come on some of you, I can tell already. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, if you will give the Ammonites into my hand, this is before what we just read, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me, will I return in peace. When I return in peace from the Ammonites, shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it for a burnt offering. Verse 34. Then Jephthah came to his home at Mizpah, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with tambourines and with dances. She was excited. They'd won. Daddy, you're home. You won. You're the hero. She was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. And as soon as he saw her, he tore his clothes. And he said, alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low. And you have become the cause of great trouble to me. Don't you know that was so confusing for her to hear at first? She's excited, dancing, tambourines, celebration. They just won the battle. It's D-Day. For I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow. Jephthah had made this vow to God. God, if you will deliver the enemy into my hand, then whatever comes out the door of my house, I'll offer it as a sacrifice to you. You get the idea that he was expecting some animal to come out from his grounds there. Not his child, certainly not his only child there. He was devastated. I mean, can you imagine? Absolutely devastated. The passage says that, and then states that Jephthah, in verse 39, he did to her as he had vowed. Now, folks, what lessons do we learn from this? Be careful what you say, all right? Okay, God expects you to honor your vow, right? Okay, what else do we take from this, though? To me, what's the main lesson of this? Okay, what? Yeah, don't make a rash vow. Be careful about the vows that you make. Don't just, God, if you'll do this, then I'll do that. That's what happened here. Don't be so quick to make a rash, foolish vow. To me, that's the main takeaway right there. All right? Now let's read Jephthah's daughter's response when she hears what actually happened. Verse 36, the commitment of the daughter. And she said to him, my father, You've opened your mouth to the Lord, to the Lord. Do to me according to what has gone out of your mouth, now that the Lord has avenged you on your enemies, on the Ammonites. So she said to her father, let this thing be done for me, though. Leave me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down on the mountains and weep for my virginity, I and my companions. So he said, go. Then he sent her away for 2 months, and she departed, she and her companions, and wept for her virginity on the mountains. And at the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, who did with her according to his vow that he had made. She had never known a man, and it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went year by year to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite 4 days in the year. When he told his daughter of his vow, surprisingly, I think, she accepted the consequences. She just asked that there be a 2 months to mourn beforehand. Give me 2 months before you carry out this vow. Now, the Bible does not explicitly state that Jephthah sacrificed his daughter as a burnt offering. Since his daughter was mourning the fact that she would never marry, rather than mourning the fact that she was about to die, notice what it says in verse 37. Look at verse 37 again, click it there. Let this thing be done to me. Let me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down on the mountains and what? Weep for my virginity. This possibly, some commentators believe this possibly could indicate that Jephthah gave her to the tabernacle as a servant, that she would never have children. She was his only child, and she would be a virgin perpetually, and that she was going to wail and weep her virginity, mourn her virginity, that she would never, ever, ever have a child. And you know, in that day, a woman who was barren was considered cursed by God. And so this was a heavy, and so some commentators think that's what happened with her. And yet verse 39 does say he did to her as he had vowed. And the event was so well known among the Israelites that it became a custom for the daughters of Israel to mourn that event each year for 4 days. Now, let me ask you this question. What does that say about Jephthah's daughter? What do we learn about her in that? She respected her father. That's certainly one. What else? Obedient, okay. Okay. You get the idea that he had passed his faith down to her. Father, you've made this commitment to the Lord. I can't go against the Lord. I think it speaks much about Jephthah's daughter. Now, what does this say about Jephthah's level of commitment to the Lord? Wow. Really? Wow. Whatever the case, whether she was killed or whether she was given as a sacrifice to the tabernacle and that she would never have a child, we do know this, though. We do know whether he carried forth a sacrifice, we do know that that was not the Lord's will. It's never, ever, ever, human sacrifice is never, ever, ever God's will. Okay, let me show you that. Leviticus chapter 20, verse number 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, say to the people of Israel, any of the people of Israel or of the strangers who sojourn in Israel, who gives any of his children to Molech, shall surely be put to death. What was giving your child to Molech? What was that? Child sacrifice, right? It's happening right now in Chicago at the DNC. I mean that. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. I myself will set my face against that man and will cut him off from among his people, because he has given one of his children to Molech, to make my sanctuary unclean and to profane my holy name. And if the people of the land do at all close their eyes, that's as if no one, people act like it didn't happen. They close their eyes to that man when he gives one of his children to Molech, and do not put him to death, then I will set my face against that man and against his clan, and I will cut them off from among his people, him and all who follow him in whoring after Molech. God is here pretty plainly saying it's not just those who are killing their children, it's those who don't say anything against it. He said, I'm going to hold them accountable as well. Folks, we are to be salt and light in this world. We are to stand for righteousness. And clearly, God is against human sacrifice. That's the point here with Jephthah's daughter. Look at Jeremiah 7:31. We know that the idea of human sacrifice has never even entered God's mind. And they have built the high places of Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I did not command, nor did it come into my mind. I never want that to ever happen, God says. Never crossed my mind that that's a good thing to do. Jeremiah 19:5. And they have built the high places of Baal to burn their sons in the fire, as burnt offerings to Baal, which I did not command or decree, nor did it come into my mind. That's the farthest thing from my mind that you could ever think that you could do by offering a child to me. God says, I'm not for that. Look at 32:35. They built the high places of Baal in the valley of the son of Hinnom to offer up their sons and daughters to Molech, though I did not command them, nor did it enter into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. God says, not only is it not acceptable, it didn't come into my mind as something that I want. He said, this is an abomination. This is something that I hate. What is an abomination? An abomination is something that God hates. Okay? So, the story of Jephthah is not over. We see in the next chapter that the haters are going to hate. Let's see what happens here. The haters are going to hate. Chapter 12 and verse number 1. The men of Ephraim were called to arms, and they crossed to Zaphon and said to Jephthah, why did you cross over to fight against the Ammonites and did not call us to go with you? Do you understand what's going on here? A fellow tribe of Israel is saying they're mad because he didn't invite them to come and fight with him, alongside him, against the Ammonites, the enemy. Well, let's see if that's the case. Keep reading here. We're not happy about this. Why didn't you call us to go with you? Look how unhappy they are. We will burn your house over you with fire. That's pretty severe. And Jephthah said to them, I and my people had a great dispute with the Ammonites. And when I called you, notice, I called you, you didn't pick up the phone. And when I called you, you did not save me from their hand. And when I saw that you would not save me, I took my life into my hand and crossed over against the Ammonites. And the Lord gave them in. Listen, you didn't come to help. I sent messengers for you to come and help me. You didn't do it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to have to do this one all alone. It's by myself. I'm going to take my own life into my own hand. So I went against them, and the Lord gave them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me? Then Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead. And so now you got one tribe fighting against another tribe. And they fought with Ephraim. And the men of Gilead struck Ephraim because they said, you are fugitives of Ephraim, you Gileadites, in the midst of Ephraim and Manasseh. And the Gileadites are, of course, is Jephthah's group. The Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan against the Ephraimites. And when any of the fugitives of, this is something else you probably remember, and when any of the fugitives of Ephraim said, let us go over, the men of Gilead said to them, are you an Ephraimite? Okay, so you need to understand what's happened here. So Jephthah and the Gileadites have beaten the Ephraimites, but the Ephraimites are thinking that they're going to kind of slip in, covertly, and maybe they're not going to recognize them as being friend or foe. Okay, the Jabbok River was the demarcating the border between them there. And so they're trying to cross over into the Gileadite land there. They're trying to, you kind of get the idea, they're going to send in all these foreigners and eventually form a coup on the inside and invade from the inside. That seems kind of familiar. But that's their plan. But they had a better border policy than we do. Notice. Oh, where was I? Verse 6. Middle of verse 5. And when any of the fugitives of Ephraim said, let me go over, and the men of Gilead said to him, Are you an Ephraimite? And they said, well, no, I'm not. That'd be the enemy. Then they said to him, then say Shibboleth. And he would say Sibboleth, for he could not pronounce it right. They couldn't say the sh sound. All they could say was Sibboleth. They couldn't pronounce the sh. Okay, I'll explain that in a minute. And then they seized him, whoever couldn't say the word rightly, if he said Sibboleth when he was supposed to say Shibboleth. Then they seized him and slaughtered him at the fords of the Jordan. How many? At that time, 42,000 of the Ephraimites fell. They had a strong border policy. Nobody was getting in. Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in his city in Gilead. So what you need to understand is the Gileadites had intermingled with the foreigners. And the foreigners had pronounced this city as Shibboleth. Okay? But the Ephraimites, the native people to that area, they hadn't picked that pronunciation of the word up. They pronounced it, I had a word earlier and I thought, how do you pronounce the state just north of Arkansas? Just to the west of the Mississippi River? Missouri? Missouri? Anybody pronounce it Missouri? Missouri? Okay. It's Shibboleth, Sibboleth. Okay? Tomato, potato. And that was the way that they were able to determine. It wasn't a matter of show me your green card. Say Shibboleth. Say that, and they wouldn't say it, or they would name that city, because it was a city. Name that city, just whatever. They would describe it. Oh, well, that's Sibboleth. Oh, just like that. And that's what happened there. Why did that happen? Why did Ephraim get mad at Jephthah and the Gileadites? Why do you suppose after the Gileadites and Jephthah had won the battle and had defeated and had conquered lands, and there was now all these, I'm leading you into all these spoils of war. Why do you think the Ephraimites now are like, why didn't you call us to battle? They wanted the booty of war. They wanted the spoils of war. They wanted that. Did they? And they had their opportunity to go and fight, but they chose not to. I said it this way: haters are going to hate. Haters are going to hate. They did right. The Gileadites, Jephthah did right. And so what's the lesson here? I think the lesson is quickly this. Even when we do the right thing, we may face criticism and even personal attack from others. Even when we do right. You can do right. And many times it said the Lord did it. The Lord delivered the enemy into their hand. This was all of the Lord. And yet, even working on behalf of the Lord and being empowered by the Lord, they're being criticized by somebody else. It's just going to happen. Can I tell you something? And this is something I've learned about more senior folks. Y'all get thicker. I know physically you get thinner skin. But emotionally you get thicker skin. You get a thicker hide, if you know what I mean. You don't worry about the criticism. Every little criticism that comes your way, you're like, Sibboleth. You don't care anymore, right? But let somebody younger receive some kind of criticism. They won't sleep for a week, right? You all sleep like a baby. You sleep during the day and stay up all night. But anyway, why? You reach that place where you're like, you know what? I'm going to do right by God and hang the rest. Right? And that's what happened. Jephthah and the Gileadites, they did right. The Ephraimites, they criticized, they attacked. We're going to come burn your house down on top of your head. Whatever. And so he whooped up on them too. So, Bygones be bygones. All right, what are the lessons? Let me just give them to you, and then we'll pray and be on our way. I picked out 10 lessons from this lesson. Number 1, be careful to not burn bridges. Be careful to not burn bridges. Number 2, learn to let go of the grudge. If you got a grudge, let go of it. Number 3, seek to be a peacemaker. Seek to be a peacemaker. Number 4, allow God to fight your battles for you. The Lord did all the fighting in that situation, and He won for them. 5, don't make rash vows and promises to God or anyone else. Don't be too quick to make a vow. That's actually commanded in Scripture. Be slow to make a vow. 6, make sure any vow that we make is something that is not in violation of God's Word. Jephthah, that was a wrong vow. It's not. God never wanted any person sacrificed. By the way, if you say, Pastor, what do you think really happened? I don't really think he killed her. I think that she was given as a sacrifice to the tabernacle, and that she wailed her virginity upon the mountains, knowing she would never have a child. Mm-hmm. You think so? I don't think anybody can be dogmatic about it. And I know you read J. Vernon McGee, he has one opinion. John MacArthur has another opinion. And so you got good Bible scholars who just come down on. And so you're one Bible scholar who agrees one way, I agree the other way. So, yeah, Sibboleth. Uh-huh. Phonetically sound out the word as it's spelled. What's at the end, an A or an I? You should, well, it's not an E. It says Missouri. It's not an E, that's for sure. Winder? Yeah. Yeah. Some people pronounce where I'm from as being, they accentuate different vowels within the word of the state, Tennessee. Some people say they're from Tennessee. Tennessee or Tennessee. I accentuate the last vowel, Tennessee. Why? Because in English class, that's what it's taught, Tennessee. But when you're from Tennessee, some people say it's Tennessee. But anyway, Sibboleth. If you hear me say that Sunday. Number 7, when you make a vow, determine to keep it. Determined to keep it. Number 8, God can use us regardless of our background. God can use us regardless of our past. Number 9, we cannot change where we came from, yet God can use us in great ways despite our past. I guess that's the same as 8, or I was half asleep there. 8 and 9 is the same thing. Number 10, even when we do the right thing, we may face criticism and attack from others. Even whenever I give you the proper interpretation that she was not killed, somebody attacks me and says that she was. And so, oh, I love the camaraderie and the spirit in here. Did it get hot in here? I felt like the air conditioner went off or something. I don't know. All right. We just acclimated to the surroundings. Yeah, okay, maybe that's it. Brother Grace, would you lead us in a word of prayer?